Imagine a life where no one can disturb your peace. Not their words, not their judgment, not even their disrespect. You move through the world with calm confidence, untouched by insults and unshaken by chaos. This isn't a fantasy. It's a choice, a discipline, and I've lived it. There was a time when criticism made me tense, when every attack felt personal. But I learned that reacting doesn't make you strong. It makes you a slave to others. True strength is when you remain still while the world tries to shake you. When you no longer need to prove anything, because your peace is your proof. In this video, I'll teach you powerful lessons that helped me train my mind the same way I trained my body. If you want to become untouchable, not by fighting harder, but by rising above, then stay with me. Your freedom begins now. 1. Emotional control is the highest form of discipline. Let me explain something that most people never truly understand. Emotional control is not about suppressing your feelings, and it's not about pretending to be calm when inside you're boiling. It's about training your mind to respond from a place of wisdom, not impulse. You see, many people confuse reaction with strength. They think shouting back, proving a point, or putting someone in their place shows power. But that is not power. That is emotional slavery. True strength is the ability to remain composed when everything around you is trying to pull you into chaos. I've faced many opponents in my life, in martial arts, in film, in culture, but the toughest opponent was always my own reaction. Not every fight is physical. Some battles are invisible, happening inside your head and heart. When someone insults you or disrespects you, your mind screams for revenge. But here's what I learned. When you react without thinking, you give your power away. You become predictable, easy to control. And worst of all, you become exactly what your enemy wants. Emotional, reckless, distracted. Anger is like fire. If you don't know how to contain it, it will burn everything. Your relationships, your focus, your peace. But when you learn to master it, it becomes useful. Controlled fire can forge steel. Controlled anger can build character. It can show you where your pain still lives and where your ego still needs healing. So the next time someone pushes your buttons, pause and ask yourself, is this reaction going to cost me my peace? Is this argument worth my energy? If the answer is no, and most of the time, it is then choose to walk away. Not because you're weak, but because you're powerful enough to walk through the fire without letting it consume you. That is not avoidance. That is mastery. And mastery begins with emotional discipline. 2, be like water. Never let anyone mold you. There is a reason I always said, be like water. Because water is the most powerful substance in the world. Not because it's hard, but because it's adaptable. It doesn't resist force. It flows with it. And in that flow, it wears down stone, it shapes mountains, and it finds its way through any obstacle. That is the kind of mind you must train yourself to have if you want to stay calm and unbothered in a world that constantly tries to shape you into something you're not. People will try to define you. They'll try to box you in, label you, limit you. They will push their opinions onto you, not because they know you, but because they're uncomfortable with someone who doesn't react like everyone else. They'll test your patience, mock your silence, and try to provoke a response just to feel in control. And if you're not careful, you will allow their words to mold your emotions. You will start shaping yourself to fit their expectations instead of living by your truth. But water does not allow itself to be shaped by hands. It slips through fingers. It cannot be grasped. And when placed in a cup, it becomes the cup. When placed in a river, it becomes the river. This is not weakness. It is intelligence. The water doesn't lose its nature when it adapts. It simply moves forward. That's what you must learn to do. I remember a time when people told me my style was wrong. They said my philosophy was too unorthodox. They tried to mold me into their traditions, into their ways, but I refused to be shaped by outdated thinking. I flowed around them. I listened, but I did not absorb. I respected, but I did not surrender. And in the end, it was that fluidity, that refusal to be controlled that made me stand out, that made me free. So when someone insults you, don't respond with hardness. Respond with flow. When someone tries to push you into anger, step aside like water running around a rock. Let them see that you do not have to become what they are. You are not a puppet made to dance every time someone pulls a string. You are water. You move, you think, you feel, but you are not controlled. And here's the truth. The person who can remain like water, soft, yet strong, calm, yet powerful, is the one who can pass through any situation without being disturbed, broken, or reshaped by the noise of the world. 3. Your ego is a lie that craves reaction. Let me tell you something that took me years of reflection and self-discipline to understand. Your ego is not your identity. It is a mask, a performance, a fragile creation of the mind that constantly whispers, defend me, prove me, protect me. And it is this very ego that causes most of your anger, most of your suffering, most of your reactions. You believe you're angry because of what someone said. But in truth, you're angry because your ego believed what they said. The ego is always hungry. It wants praise, attention, recognition. And when it doesn't get it, it panics. It lashes out. It convinces you that every slight is a personal attack, that every criticism is a threat to your worth. But let me ask you this, if someone called you worthless, and you truly knew your value deep in your soul, would it bother you? Would it shake you? Of course not. The insult would pass by like wind across still water. But when your ego is in control, even a whisper can disturb your peace. I remember the first time I was told I would never make it in American cinema because of my background, because of how I looked, how I spoke, the philosophy I carried. My ego rose instantly. I wanted to shout, to prove them wrong on the spot. But I paused. I asked myself, is this their truth or mine? I realized in that moment that their words only had power if I gave them permission to enter my heart. So I chose silence. I chose to build. I chose to let my work speak instead of my ego. And in time, those same people who doubted me had to watch as I rose, not with pride, but with peace. Understand this. The ego always wants to win battles that don't matter. It wants to argue over opinions, fight over looks, get revenge over insults. But a man who is anchored in self-knowledge doesn't need to fight. He is already free. He knows his value cannot be raised or lowered by someone else's words. And once you reach that state, where your peace is no longer dependent on external validation, then no one can manipulate you. No one can trigger you. No one can control your mind unless you let them. The ego is loud, but your true self is quiet. It does not need defense. It does not need to prove. It simply is. If you want to stop getting angry, stop letting your ego speak every time someone tries to touch it. Let it go. And in that letting go, you'll find a power that no one can take from you, the power of inner stillness. 4. Not everything deserves your energy. There is a quiet truth I learned after years of discipline, training, and deep inner observation. Your energy is sacred. And the more you evolve, the more you must learn to protect it. Not from weapons, not from fists, but from the countless distractions, emotional traps, and people who are not worthy of your response. You see, the world is full of noise. People will throw opinions at you, without knowing your journey. They will criticize you without understanding your intention. Some will challenge you not because they seek truth, but because they seek attention. They want to provoke you, to see if they can stir you, to feel a moment of power by pulling you into their drama. And if you don't learn to guard your energy, you will give it to everyone who asks for it, and even to those who don't deserve it. There was a moment during my film career when I was in a room full of executives, powerful men who questioned everything I represented. My philosophy, my martial arts, my vision. One man looked at me and said, "You should change who you are to fit this market. Speak less about your culture, act more like them." The room was quiet, all eyes on me, waiting for a reaction, but I remained still. I looked at him, and I smiled not out of agreement, but out of awareness. I understood in that moment that not every challenge requires a response. If I had poured my energy into trying to make him understand me, I would have wasted the very strength that brought me into that room. Instead, I focused on what mattered: my work, my art, my discipline. And it was those things, not my reaction, that changed minds later. When you give your energy to every insult, every rumor, every misunderstanding, you scatter your focus. You become reactive, emotionally exhausted, always chasing control over things that were never yours to hold. But when you choose silence, when you reserve your power only for what truly matters, you become unshakable. You conserve your mental strength, the way a master conserves breath during a fight. Steady, deliberate, calm. Ask yourself, how many times have you walked away from a meaningless argument, feeling tired, drained, and irritated, even though it solved nothing? That is the cost of giving your energy to what doesn't deserve it. The cost is your peace. The cost is your clarity. Start seeing your energy as a currency. Would you spend your life savings on something that adds no value to your growth? Then why spend your emotional energy proving points to people who are committed to misunderstanding you? A warrior does not fight every battle. A wise man does not respond to every noise. Your presence, your discipline, your focus, these are treasures. Treat them like it. Don't waste them on people who only want to pull you down to their level. The next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this: you don't need to respond to everything. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is no move at all. 5. Calmness is a weapon that disarms the world. Most people misunderstand calmness. They think it means being passive, weak, or indifferent, as if to stay calm is to do nothing. But I am telling you, calmness is one of the most dangerous weapons a human being can possess. It is not a sign of emptiness. It is a sign of full control. It means your mind has become your own, no longer pulled and shaped by every disturbance in the world. When you are calm, you cannot be manipulated. You cannot be baited, rushed, or broken. In my life, I've been in countless situations where people expected a reaction from me. Some wanted to test my patience. Some wanted to break my focus. They assumed that anger was the only valid response to confrontation. But I chose stillness, not because I couldn't fight back, but because I knew that the strongest man in the room is the one who doesn't need to raise his voice to command attention. He doesn't need to flex his muscles or prove his worth. His calmness speaks louder than any shout ever could. When I would spar with other fighters, I could always tell who had trained their emotions and who hadn't. The ones who entered the ring full of anger were often the first to lose. Why? Because anger clouds judgment. It tightens the body, narrows your vision, and drowns your awareness. But the calm fighter moves with precision. He reads the room, he sees every angle. He is like water, adapting, flowing, waiting. His strike isn't just physical, it's mental. He is already in control before the first move is made. I remember one demonstration I gave in front of an audience that included many skeptics. As I stood before them, I sensed the doubt, the silent judgment, the whispers. Some laughed, Some looked unimpressed. I could feel the energy of their disbelief, trying to challenge my presence. But I didn't respond to it with tension. I didn't try to convince them. I didn't let my heartbeat rise to match their challenge. I simply breathed and stood still. I centered myself in that calmness. And when I finally moved, with focus, with grace, with explosive precision, the entire room fell silent. Because calmness, when mastered, has the power to command without force. You see, when you remain calm in the face of chaos, people don't know how to deal with you. They expect noise. They expect reaction. They expect you to lose control. And when you don't, when you stay grounded, speak clearly, act slowly, they begin to question themselves. Your calmness becomes a mirror that reflects their own instability back to them. And that, my friend, is a power few people ever learn to wield. But make no mistake, calmness does not come naturally. It must be trained like a muscle. It must be sharpened like a blade. You do this by confronting your inner triggers, by facing your emotional weaknesses, by breathing through discomfort instead of running from it. It is built moment by moment. Each time you choose stillness over reaction. Each time you choose awareness over impulse. You cannot fake calmness. It must be real. And when it becomes real, it becomes unstoppable. So many people are slaves to their surroundings. Someone cuts them off in traffic, they explode. Someone criticizes them, they defend, argue, retaliate. Someone ignores them, they spiral into insecurity. What they don't see is that every time they react, they hand over a piece of their power to the very person they're reacting to. They become puppets, dancing to the strings of others' emotions. And in the end, they wonder why they feel drained, lost, out of control. Calmness is the antidote to this chaos. It is the root of clarity. When you are calm, you begin to see things others can't. You begin to hear what goes unsaid. You become sensitive to energy, to motive, to truth. It's not just about staying quiet, it's about becoming deeply conscious. A calm mind is a powerful mind. And when you operate from that place, you can no longer be dragged into meaningless battles. You rise above them. In the street, in the ring, or in life, the man who remains calm is the man who controls the situation. Not because he overpowers others, but because he refuses to be overpowered himself. Calmness gives you space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you find freedom, you find control, you find power. It is not about avoiding confrontation. It is about mastering yourself so completely that no confrontation can shake you. When the world is screaming for your attention, stay calm. When your ego begs you to respond, stay calm. When someone disrespects you, mocks you, misunderstands you, stay calm. Not because you are afraid to react, but because you are wise enough to know that most reactions only steal your peace and give strength to your enemy. Let others be loud. Let them be chaotic. Let them be lost in their own noise. You be still. Be focused. Be calm. Because calmness isn't silence. Calmness is confidence, discipline, and power held in place. Ready, aware, unbothered. And remember this, the world does not need more noise. It needs more stillness. Train yourself to be the stillness in the storm, and you will never again be controlled by anything outside of you. 6. Let people be wrong about you. One of the greatest forms of freedom you will ever experience in this life is the moment you stop trying to control how others see you. The moment you realize that not every false judgment needs to be corrected. Not every opinion deserves a reply. And not every misunderstanding is your responsibility to fix. Let me tell you something honest. People will misunderstand you, no matter how clearly you speak. They will judge you, even if you live with integrity. And some will dislike you simply because your presence reminds them of something they lack. Trying to fix all that is not only exhausting, it is impossible. I used to care about perception. In my early years, I wanted people to understand me. I wanted to be respected. I wanted people to see that martial arts was not just about fighting, but about expression, discipline, and inner growth. But the more I tried to explain myself to everyone, the more I noticed something: the people who doubted me weren't actually listening. They had already made up their minds. And no matter what I said, they filtered everything through their own bias. So I stopped wasting energy on convincing others. I stopped chasing approval. I let people be wrong about me. You must understand this truth. When people misjudge you, it often has more to do with their limitations than your reality. Some people cannot see your vision because their eyes have never looked beyond the surface of life. Some can't understand your silence because they've never been at peace with their own. And some criticize your discipline because it exposes their lack of it. If you try to fix every false perception, you will spend your life explaining your soul to minds that were never meant to understand it. There were critics who said I wasn't a real martial artist. Others said I didn't respect tradition. Some even said I was arrogant for creating my own philosophy instead of following what already existed. But I didn't argue with them. I didn't call them out. I let them talk. And while they spoke, I worked. While they doubted, I trained. And when the time came, I let my results silence the noise. People often confuse silence for surrender. They think if you don't respond, you have nothing to say. But silence can be the loudest answer when it comes from a place of confidence. When you stay focused on your purpose and let your actions speak louder than your reactions, the truth will reveal itself in time. You don't need to defend yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. Let your consistency, your growth, your peace be your defense. I want you to look at your own life. How much energy have you spent explaining yourself to people who were never truly listening? How many nights have you lost sleep thinking about how to respond to someone's judgment? How many times have you doubted yourself just because someone else couldn't see your worth? Now ask yourself, what did all of that effort change? Did it free you? Or did it trap you in a cycle of constantly needing validation? Letting people be wrong about you is not giving up. It is rising above. It's saying, I know who I am, and I no longer need your approval to feel whole. It's about choosing your peace over your pride. It's the moment you stop defending yourself to small minds so you can start building your life with strong intention. You have to learn to be misunderstood without needing to correct everything. Some people will only understand your journey when they see the destination. Some may never understand it at all. That's okay. Their understanding is not your mission. Your mission is to stay aligned with your values, your goals, and your truth. And when you walk in that truth long enough, you stop needing people to see it because you begin to feel it inside you so deeply, so clearly that outside opinions no longer carry weight. I know it's difficult. It's hard to be misread. It's painful when your silence is called arrogance or your strength is mistaken for coldness. But I promise you, the less you chase being understood, the more you will find peace within. The fewer battles you fight trying to correct lies, the more energy you'll have to create a life so powerful that the truth becomes undeniable. So when they talk, let them talk. When they assume, let them assume. And when they try to reduce your worth to their limited perspective, smile, stay calm, and continue your path. Their words are their weight. Don't carry it. Let people be wrong about you. It's not your job to teach everyone your worth. Your presence will teach it to the ones who are ready, and the rest will simply fade into the background. 7. The unbothered mind is the ultimate freedom. There is a kind of freedom that few ever reach, not because it's far away, but because they never stop chasing the wrong things to notice it. This freedom doesn't come from fame, money, or strength. It doesn't come from being praised or respected by the world. No, The highest form of freedom is this: to be untouched by the chaos around you, to be unbothered, not because you're numb, but because you're anchored so deeply within yourself that nothing external can shake you. When I speak of the unbothered mind, I don't mean a careless or disconnected mind. I'm not talking about ignoring life or pretending nothing matters. I'm talking about a mind so trained, so rooted in presence, that no insult, no rejection, no misunderstanding can reach its core. You hear the noise, but you don't carry it. You see the storm, but you don't enter it. You feel the tension of others, but you don't absorb it. That is real power. I had to fight to reach that place myself. Not in the dojo, not on camera, but within. You see, early in my journey, I was affected by everything. A single word could disrupt my peace. A small doubt from others could make me question my purpose. I felt the weight of being watched, judged, compared. Every time someone tried to belittle my philosophy or culture, a fire would rise in me, not always of wisdom, but of ego. And that fire, as powerful as it felt, burned me more than anyone else. It took time to realize that the greatest enemy was not them. It was my own sensitivity to their opinions. I was handing over my peace, piece by piece, to people who never deserved it. And so I made a decision. I would not let this world have that kind of access to my spirit anymore. I would train my mind like I trained my body, with discipline, with structure, with focus. And I would become not just strong in technique, but untouchable in peace. To be unbothered doesn't mean you never feel anything. It means you have mastered how to respond to what you feel. When anger rises, you observe it instead of unleashing it. When someone disrespects you, you assess, is this worthy of my energy? When someone tries to shame or challenge you, you no longer react with emotion. You respond with clarity or not at all. Let me ask you, how many times have you wasted your peace trying to defend your worth? How often have you sacrificed your calm just to prove a point that didn't matter a day later? Every time you do this, you make yourself smaller. You enter battles that have nothing to do with your true path. You give power to people who thrive off chaos because they know they can touch you. They know they can reach your emotions with a few careless words. But when your mind is unbothered, when you train yourself to see things clearly, not personally, you take that power back. You become the calm center in a spinning world, the mountain in the middle of the storm, the ocean that remains vast and undisturbed, even when stones are thrown into it. People often ask me, how do you stay calm when so many try to provoke you? And I say it's not about staying calm. It's about choosing not to be controlled. If someone can make you angry with a sentence, then they own you. If they can disturb your day with a look, then you've surrendered your peace before the real fight even begins. I want you to understand something that most never learn. Your inner peace is your real home. If you lose it, it doesn't matter what you build on the outside, you will always feel unstable. But if you protect it, if you guard it like your most valuable treasure, then no matter what falls apart around you, you will still feel whole. You will still be rooted. You will still be free. That is why I tell you, train the mind more than the body. Anyone can learn how to strike, how to kick, how to fight. But not everyone can walk through this world with a calm mind and a kind heart. That takes work. That takes awareness. That takes choosing stillness over reaction every single day. Let the world scream. Let people misunderstand you. Let life throw its tests. But you breathe, observe, move with precision. And when you do act with intention. Speak less, listen more. Give no one the power to pull you out of your own peace. The man who is unbothered is not cold. He is free. He is not silent because he has nothing to say. He is silent because he chooses when to speak. He is not still because he is weak. He is still because he knows how much strength lies in restraint. Train yourself to be this man. Wake up each morning and say, today, no one owns my mood but me. No word, no look, no noise can shake the temple I've built within. Because once your peace becomes non-negotiable, your presence becomes unbreakable. And if you remember nothing else, remember this. The most powerful man in the room is not the loudest, not the angriest, not the one who wins the argument. The most powerful man is the one who remains calm, focused, unshaken, no matter what chaos surrounds him. That is the unbothered mind. And that is ultimate freedom. 8. Don't let anyone control the way you feel inside. One of the most dangerous things you can ever do in this life is allow someone else to have control over the way you feel. Because the moment you give them that power, whether it's through their words, their silence, their presence, or their absence, you become a puppet. Your emotions, your thoughts, your peace are no longer yours. You wake up and your mood depends on who texted you. You walk through the day waiting for approval. You lie in bed, unable to sleep, because someone else decided not to value you. And the worst part, you don't even realize it's happening because it becomes your normal. I've seen this play out again and again, not just in others, but in myself, especially in the early years. There were moments when I let what someone said control the way I viewed myself. One sentence could ruin my day. One gesture could make me question my worth. And even though I trained my body for hours every day, my emotions were still at the mercy of the outside world. It wasn't until I began truly understanding the mind, observing it, disciplining it, that I realized something powerful. Emotional control isn't about suppressing your feelings. It's about owning them. It's about choosing them. It's about reclaiming what was always yours. Let me say something clearly. No one can truly make you feel anything unless you let them. People can speak, insult, criticize, disrespect, or abandon you. But what happens next? That fire in your chest, that knot in your stomach, that storm in your mind is not caused by them. It is created by the meaning you attach to their behavior. It is created by the story you tell yourself in response. And that story, that's yours. That's where your power lies. We all have triggers, old wounds, ego patterns, insecurities, and the world will push those buttons whether you're ready or not. But each time someone does, you are given a choice. Do you react from habit, or do you respond from awareness? Do you let their mood become your mood, or do you pause, breathe, and reclaim your inner space? There was a time when I had a disagreement with someone close to me, a disagreement that quickly escalated because I allowed my emotions to be dictated by his energy. He was angry, so I felt the need to match him. He raised his voice, so I raised mine. But after the conversation, I felt drained not because of what was said, but because I realized I had surrendered my peace just to prove I wasn't weak. And that was the real weakness. Strength is not matching someone's emotional chaos. Strength is holding on to your clarity when others lose theirs. It's choosing to stay rooted in your values, your peace, your discipline, even when everything around you is trying to pull you into noise. When someone disrespects you, it's natural to feel a sting. But feeling is not the same as reacting. You are allowed to feel disappointment, sadness, even anger, but you are not obligated to turn those feelings into action. You are not required to abandon your center just because someone else has lost theirs. The moment you realize that your emotions are yours, that they belong to no one else, is the moment you begin to live free. Think about how much time you've wasted replaying arguments in your head. How many days were clouded by someone else's bad attitude? How many hours of peace you've lost because you let someone rent space in your mind? Now imagine if you took all that energy and redirected it towards something that builds you, toward training, creating, growing, or simply being still. Your emotional state is your responsibility, not your partner's, not your boss's, not your past, and not the stranger who said something rude online. When you let people dictate your inner world, you give them the keys to your mental house, and you begin to live reactively instead of intentionally. That's no way to live. That's survival. And you were not born to survive, you were born to master. In martial arts, we train for precision, not just power. We learn to respond, not just attack. The same applies to life. You don't need to respond to every comment. You don't need to fix every misunderstanding. You don't need to allow others to pull your strings every time they're in a bad mood. There is great power in choosing to be unaffected. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much about your peace to hand it away so easily. I want you to begin practicing emotional independence. Start noticing where you lose your peace, who takes it, why you give it. Then begin reclaiming it. If someone ignores you, instead of taking it personally, ask yourself what wound that triggered. If someone insults you, instead of exploding, ask yourself if it's really your truth or just their pain projected onto you. If someone disrespects you, instead of needing to put them in their place, ask yourself if they even deserve a place in your mind. This kind of awareness doesn't happen overnight. But every time you choose presence over impulse, silence over reaction, self-reflection over blame, you are breaking the pattern. You are rewiring your brain. You are stepping into mastery. There is a stillness inside you, a place no one can touch unless you open the door. Stop leaving that door wide open for everyone who walks by. Guard it. Stand at the entrance like a warrior, and only allow in what aligns with your peace, your purpose, and your growth. Because in the end, the world will always try to control how you feel through fear, pressure, manipulation, or noise. But you were not meant to be controlled. You were meant to move like water, feel deeply, and yet remain rooted in your own truth. So don't let anyone, not their words, not their silence, not their chaos, decide how you feel inside. Let your feelings be yours. Let your mind be yours. Let your peace be yours. That is emotional freedom. That is the mark of a true master. 9. Your peace is more valuable than winning any argument. There is something that takes many people their entire lives to understand, and some never do. It's this. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to be right all the time. You don't need to prove your truth to those who are determined not to see it. Because at the end of the day, your peace is more valuable than being right. Your calm is worth more than someone's applause. And the ability to walk away without saying a word, that's not weakness. That's wisdom in its highest form. I've been in rooms where people spoke about me as if I wasn't there. I've had my ideas dismissed, my culture mocked, my purpose questioned. And in those moments, the ego whispered, say something. Prove them wrong. Don't let them get away with it. But you must learn to listen to something higher than the ego, your stillness. Because when you choose peace over pride, you don't lose power. You gain it. What I learned through experience, reflection, and many painful mistakes is that the need to argue often comes from insecurity. It comes from a mind that is still looking for outside validation. It comes from a person who believes their value must be confirmed by others. But when you are truly at peace with yourself, arguments begin to look very different. You no longer feel the need to jump in and correct every wrong. You no longer burn your energy trying to change minds that are closed. You realize that inner peace is not something to gamble for the sake of being right. Think of all the time that's been wasted in useless debates. All the relationships that have been damaged by arguments that started with a misunderstanding and turned into a war of egos. How many of those arguments actually brought resolution? How many brought peace? How many left both sides exhausted, bitter, and further apart than before? Sometimes. Walking away is the real victory. Not because you couldn't win, but because winning would cost you something too valuable. Your mental clarity, your emotional balance, your time, your energy, and you must begin to see those things as sacred, as things not to be spent lightly, especially not on those who thrive on conflict. I recall an interaction I had years ago with a man who disagreed with my philosophy. He came to me not to understand, but to confront. His words were sharp. His tone was challenging. He wanted to debate, to dominate the conversation, to prove me wrong in front of others. But I looked at him, listened to him, and chose not to engage. I thanked him for sharing his thoughts and moved on. People later asked me why I didn't respond, why I didn't defend myself. My answer was simple: because I wasn't attacked. Only my image was, and I've learned not to protect my image at the cost of my essence. You see, when you no longer live through the lens of your ego, you become very hard to provoke. You realize that your truth does not require noise. It only requires your continued presence, your actions, your silence. Arguments pull you out of your center. They demand urgency, emotional charge, and often a loss of control. But peace, real peace, gives you the space to choose your battles with intention. You don't speak to be heard. You speak to be effective. And sometimes, the most effective thing you can do is say nothing at all. When someone misunderstands you, that is not always your burden to fix. When someone lies about you, you do not always need to rush in and clear your name. Let your life speak. Let your consistency speak. Let time speak. Because in the end, truth reveals itself in silence far more powerfully than in shouting matches. You must begin to see arguments as distractions, weapons of ego. If someone truly seeks understanding, you will feel it. Their tone, their openness, their humility will make it clear. And when those people come, welcome the conversation. But if someone only seeks to win, to dominate, to embarrass, to control, then your silence becomes your defense, your shield, and your elevation. Ask yourself, what do you lose every time you argue with someone whose goal is not truth, but control? You lose time. You lose energy. You lose emotional peace. And most importantly, you shift your focus away from what truly matters. That is too high a price to pay. In martial arts, we don't strike every time someone moves. We wait. We observe. We respond only when it's necessary. The same is true in life. The undisciplined react to everything. The master chooses when to act and when not to. That choice is what makes him dangerous and what makes him free. The next time you feel that urge to argue, to correct, to fight back, to prove your point, pause. Ask yourself, will this bring peace or will it simply drain me? If the answer is the latter, walk away. Not because you lost, but because you rose above. When you protect your peace, you protect your mind. And when your mind is clear, you begin to see life with deeper eyes. You see people not just by what they say, but by where it's coming from. You begin to notice that most anger is pain in disguise, that most arguments are just fear speaking louder than truth. And when you see that, compassion takes the place of confrontation. But don't confuse peace with passivity. Being peaceful does not mean being silent in the face of injustice. It means being intentional. Speaking only when your words will bring clarity, not just noise. It means knowing when to speak and when to let silence speak louder. So I say this to you. Never trade your peace for the illusion of winning. If the cost of being right is losing your center, it's not worth it. Let the world argue. Let them fight over noise. You be still. Be clear. be untouchable. Because the man who has peace within cannot be provoked. He is not reactive. He is not defensive. He is not fragile. He walks through the world with a quiet strength, a silent fire, and a mind that cannot be controlled by anything outside of him. That is the power of choosing peace over argument. That is the mindset of mastery. 10. Disengage from drama to elevate your life. There is a simple truth that can change your life forever. If you truly understand it, the more you disengage from drama, the more you rise. The less you react to noise, conflict, and petty games, the clearer your path becomes. You were not born to be a character in other people's emotional battles. You were born to build something higher, a life of discipline, clarity, purpose, and peace. And to live that kind of life, you must first break free from the addiction to drama. Yes, addiction, because drama is addictive. It draws people in with emotion, with conflict, with a false sense of importance. It feeds the ego, making you feel like you must respond, must fight, must defend your position in every situation. But what you don't see until you step back is that the longer you stay involved in drama, the more you disconnect from your own growth. You are busy reacting to things that don't matter, losing energy that was meant for something greater. I've witnessed this in others, and I've witnessed it in myself. There were moments in my early journey when someone would challenge me not out of respect, but to provoke, not out of curiosity, but to belittle. And I'd feel that fire rise within me. I'd want to respond, to assert myself, to set the record straight. But each time I gave in, I felt drained afterward. Not because I was wrong, but because I had allowed myself to be pulled into something unworthy of my spirit. You see, when you engage in drama, even if you think you're standing up for yourself, you are letting someone else dictate the quality of your mind. You're allowing their chaos to influence your inner state. You are walking into their arena, where the rules are emotional reaction, ego, pride, and escalation. And the longer you stay there, the more your higher self gets buried beneath layers of tension and noise. Disengaging is not weakness. In fact, it's one of the greatest acts of strength. It's saying, I value my time, my energy, my peace too much to waste it here. It's choosing maturity over ego, clarity over confusion, elevation over entanglement. When someone tries to drag you into gossip, conflict, or meaningless fights, it takes strength to pause and say, this isn't mine to carry. It takes self-respect to walk away without guilt. We live in a world where attention is currency, and drama is a fast way to get it. That's why so many people seek it, because being involved in drama gives them a temporary feeling of significance. It makes them feel heard, seen, validated. But it's a shallow sense of power, because it's built on instability, on division, on fear. Real power doesn't raise its voice. Real strength doesn't react to every provocation. Real confidence doesn't need to engage. When you truly understand who you are, you don't feel the need to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't feel the need to correct every rumor, respond to every critic, or entertain every emotional game someone tries to play with you. I remember a time when someone publicly questioned my teachings, not with genuine interest, but with mockery. Others watched, waiting for my reaction. But I remained still. I responded not with retaliation, but with silence. And in time, the truth revealed itself through my work, my discipline, my results. That's when I understood that the highest form of response is no response at all. Just progress, just presence, just peace. Every minute you spend in drama is a minute you could have spent mastering your craft. Every thought wasted on conflict is a thought you could have used to build your future. And every ounce of emotional energy poured into negativity is energy you could have used to deepen your focus, your discipline, your peace. But to disengage, you must be self-aware. You must recognize what pulls you in the patterns, the personalities, the moments when your ego gets triggered. You must know your emotional weak spots and protect them like a fighter guards his center line. You must learn to pause, breathe, and ask yourself, is this situation helping me grow, or is it trying to shrink me? If it's the latter, the answer is clear. Walk away. And here's something else you must understand. Not everyone is ready to meet you at the level of your clarity. Some people are addicted to conflict. They live in drama because that's where they feel most alive. But their way is not your way. Their path is not your path. You don't have to go down with them just to prove you're strong. You can stay in your center and let them spin without pulling you in. When you learn to disengage, you start to experience something rare in this world's stillness. The kind of stillness that allows you to think clearly, move with purpose, and feel grounded in every decision you make. You start rising above the noise, not because you think you're better, but because you finally understand the cost of staying down there. This is not about avoiding responsibility. It's about choosing where your attention goes. It's about knowing that not every battle is yours to fight. Some are designed to distract you. Some are meant to drain you. Some are simply traps to pull you off your path. And if you're not careful, you'll spend years in those traps, never realizing how much time you've lost until it's too late. But you have a choice. You can choose to protect your peace. You can choose to remain calm when others lose themselves. You can choose to step back when the energy becomes toxic. You can choose to elevate, not just sometimes, but every day. Because elevation is not something that happens by accident. It is something you do consciously, again and again, with discipline, with humility, and with courage. So I say this to you, disengage from drama. Not once, not just when it's convenient, but as a way of life. Make it your instinct to pause, to step back, to ask, is this worth my presence? Because where your presence goes, your power flows. Guard it, master it, build something with it. And the more you do, the more you'll find that life opens in new ways. Your mind becomes clearer. Your relationships grow stronger. Your purpose sharpens. And you begin to move through the world, not as a reactor, but as a creator. That is the power of disengagement. That is the path of mastery. That is how you rise. 11. Your response is your responsibility, not theirs. There is one truth I learned, not through books, but through life itself, in the way I trained, in the way I was tested, and in the way I failed and got back up again. That truth is this: your response is your responsibility. Not your parents, not your enemies, not your circumstances, not the one who provoked you. No matter what anyone says, no matter what anyone does, how you respond is on you. That is where your power begins. And that is also where many people give it away. We live in a world where most people believe they are reacting, but they are not. They are being controlled. They are being pulled, manipulated, and provoked. Someone says something, and they snap. Someone ignores them, and they spiral. Someone disrespects them, and they feel they have no choice but to fire back. They say, I had to respond like that he made me angry. But let me ask you, who is in control of you? Is it the other person, or is it you? If your emotions can be dictated by others, then you are no longer leading your life. You are being led by everyone else's chaos. I remember many times in my life, especially during the rise of my career, when people tested me. They questioned my culture. They laughed at my vision. They told me to tone myself down, to make my expression more acceptable. I had a choice. I could react with rage, or I could respond with clarity. I could either give them power over my state of mind, or I could take ownership of it and move forward with purpose. You see, the ego always wants a reaction. It craves the last word. It wants to win, to dominate, to protect its image. But the soul, your true self, is not interested in reaction. It's interested in alignment. It's interested in truth. It's interested in choosing what is right over what is loud. And until you learn to pause, to breathe, to observe, to separate your emotion from your action, you will continue to confuse emotional impulses with conscious responses. That's why I say, your response is your responsibility. Because your response shapes your day, your relationships, your future. It defines your character. It reveals what you've mastered and what still controls you. If your first instinct is always to react, to lash out, to prove, to protect your pride, then your growth is still in the hands of others. You are still at the mercy of triggers. But if you learn to pause, to sit with discomfort, to not take things personally, you begin to change everything. That pause becomes your power. It creates space between the trigger and your decision. And in that space, you remember, I am not what happened to me. I am how I choose to respond. Let's be clear. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. It doesn't mean you let people walk over you or disrespect your boundaries. No. It means you handle it without losing yourself. You protect your boundaries without becoming bitter. You speak truth without shouting. You defend your values without falling into ego traps. Because the strongest man in the room is not the one who shouts the loudest. It's the one who stays rooted when others are losing their minds. In martial arts, we train not just for speed or technique, we train for reaction control. A good fighter doesn't respond to feints, to false movements. He watches, he studies, he waits for the real opening. The same applies in life. Most of what people throw at you isn't even real. It's projection, it's insecurity, it's noise. And if you're not trained, you'll fall for every bit of it. You'll be triggered into reacting every time someone moves the wrong way around you. And that's not mastery, that's mental slavery. True freedom is when you can stay calm while others are angry, kind while others are cruel, and focused while others are chaotic. Not because you're numb, but because you've taken full responsibility for your mind. You've trained it, you've disciplined it, you've taught it that no one gets to decide how you show up except you. There is a kind of peace that comes when you stop blaming the world for how you feel. When you stop saying, she made me sad, or he made me mad, or they made me doubt myself. No one can make you feel anything without your permission. You might not control the storm, but you control how you steer the ship. And the stronger you become, the less you react, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. So start taking ownership, not just of your success, but of your reactions. Catch yourself when your first instinct is to fight back. Ask yourself, what is my goal in this moment? Is it to be right, or is it to stay aligned with my peace? Every situation offers you a test. Will you react out of habit or respond with mastery? There will always be people who try to test your emotions. Some do it intentionally, others unconsciously. But you don't have to attend every battle you're invited to. You don't need to respond to every message, every stare, every word meant to pull you off balance. Most of it isn't about you anyway, it's about them. And once you see that clearly, you don't just gain peace, you gain freedom. When you take full responsibility for your response, you become powerful in a way most people never experience. You no longer live your life explaining, defending, correcting. You begin to conserve your energy. You begin to direct your focus. You begin to live on your own terms. And in that space, between reaction and response is where your real life begins. So remember this. People will talk. People will push. People will test. That's their choice. But how you respond, that's your choice. That's your power. That's your responsibility. Own it. 12. Walk away without explaining yourself. There is a moment in every warrior's life, a moment that defines not their strength in battle, but their strength in peace. It is the moment they realize they no longer need to explain themselves. Not to critics, not to doubters, not to those who never tried to understand them in the first place. And when that moment arrives, they walk away not out of defeat, but out of mastery. You see, we are taught from a young age to explain, to justify, to make sure everyone understands us. If someone accuses us, we defend. If someone questions us, we explain. If someone misunderstands us, we over-communicate, hoping to be seen. But here is the truth no one tells you. When you keep trying to explain yourself to people who don't value understanding, you drain your energy and hand them your power. There were many moments in my life where I could have argued. Moments when people misrepresented my intentions, mocked my methods, misunderstood my path. I could have spoken up every time. I could have tried to make them see me, hear me, accept me. But I learned painfully and clearly that some minds are not ready for certain truths, and no amount of explanation can teach someone what they are not ready to understand. So I started walking away, calmly, quietly, not in anger, but in clarity, because I understood that my time, my energy, my focus, they are sacred, and I will not spend them convincing someone who has already decided not to listen. I will not pause my growth to beg for someone's approval. I will not slow my movement to accommodate someone who is committed to misunderstanding me. Let me ask you, how many times have you tried to explain yourself to someone and walked away feeling emptier? How many times did you lay out your truth, hoping they would finally get it, only to be met with more resistance, more criticism, more confusion? That is the trap of needing to be understood. It keeps you running in circles. It keeps you explaining, clarifying, proving, until you forget why you were walking your path in the first place. There's a kind of silence that is louder than any speech, a kind of stillness that carries more weight than explanation. When you know who you are, when you know what you stand for, what you believe, what you're building, you don't feel the need to explain it at every corner. You let your actions speak. You let your consistency prove what words never could. People may call it arrogance. They may call it avoidance. Let them. Because those who are truly aligned with you will not need endless explanations. They will feel your presence. They will sense your intention. They will see your work. The rest are just noise. Noise you must learn to walk away from without hesitation, without guilt, without the weight of needing to be understood. Walking away without explaining yourself is not rudeness, it is self-respect. It means you know that not every question deserves an answer. Not every opinion deserves your energy. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Because your peace is more valuable than their approval. Your path is more sacred than their permission. And your mind is more powerful when it is not tied to every opinion that passes your way. This doesn't mean you become cold. It doesn't mean you close yourself off. It means you become selective. You choose where you speak and where you stay silent. You choose who gets access to your thoughts, your plans, your vulnerability. And you understand that silence is not weakness. It's protection. It's refinement. It's the mark of someone who has trained themselves to no longer react to everything. There was a time when I was asked to compromise my message, to dilute my philosophy, to make my presence more digestible for others. And yes, I was tempted to explain, to prove that what I was doing had depth, had power, had truth. But then I realized if I had to explain my entire soul just to be accepted, I wasn't truly being accepted. I was being tolerated. And I will not live a life where my truth must be watered down just to make others comfortable. So I walked away, and I kept building. And when you do the same, when you stop explaining and start walking, you will begin to notice something. Your energy will come back, your clarity will sharpen, your confidence will rise. You'll stop seeking approval and start aligning with purpose. You'll stop chasing understanding and start embracing solitude. And from that solitude, something beautiful is born, a peace that no one can take from you, because it no longer depends on anyone but you. The people who need you to explain yourself constantly are often the ones who want to control you. They want to mold your truth into something they can understand, something they can manage. But your truth isn't here to be managed. It's here to be lived. And if they can't walk with you without needing to dissect every step, then it's okay to walk without them. This lesson takes strength. It takes trust in yourself. It takes the ability to stand tall in silence, knowing that your silence is not empty. It is full of direction, full of discipline, full of unshakable clarity. You begin to speak less and create more. You begin to argue less and move more. And the louder the world becomes, the more peaceful your stillness becomes. So I tell you, walk away. Walk away when your peace is being traded for someone else's comfort. Walk away when your truth is being twisted. Walk away when you feel your spirit being pulled into a place that does not belong to your future. And do it without explaining, not out of pride, but out of wisdom. Not out of ego, but out of discipline. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much about what truly matters. Let your silence be your power. Let your distance be your message. Let your presence, your results, and your peace speak what your words no longer need to. Because the one who walks away without explanation is not running. He is rising. 13. Master yourself, or the world will master you. There is no greater victory in this life than the victory over yourself. Not your opponent, not your critics, not even your enemies. Because the truth is, the world doesn't have to defeat you. It only has to distract you, provoke you, confuse you, and you will defeat yourself. If you don't learn how to master your own thoughts, your own reactions, your own energy, the world will do it for you. And it won't ask your permission. I've seen it happen in every corner of life, in the ring, in relationships, in leadership, in the quiet battle of the mind. A man wakes up determined, focused, ready to move toward his vision. But then one word, one opinion, one rejection, one delay shakes him. And suddenly, his entire day becomes a response to something outside of him. That is not freedom. That is emotional slavery. Mastery begins with awareness. You must become aware of the ways you give your power away, the moments when you allow the external world to control your internal state. When someone cuts you off in traffic and suddenly you're filled with rage. When someone forgets to acknowledge your work and you question your value. When one misunderstanding steals your entire peace of mind. These are not small moments. They are symptoms. They are signs that you are still being mastered by the world instead of mastering yourself. When I first began teaching martial arts, I focused heavily on the physical movement, power, speed. But I soon realized that none of it mattered without mental discipline. A student with the fastest hands, but an undisciplined mind, was a danger to himself. One insult, and he'd lose control. One mistake and his emotions would take over. I saw it again and again. Talented men falling apart, not from lack of ability, but from lack of self-mastery. That's when I started to shift my focus inward. I trained not just to move with precision, but to think with clarity. I began watching my thoughts like a gatekeeper watches the door. I questioned my reactions. I observed my impulses. I learned to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. And that is when real strength began to grow, not in my fists, but in my mind. To master yourself means to know yourself deeply. It means understanding where your anger comes from, what triggers your ego, why you seek validation, and what it takes to disturb your peace. It means not just knowing your strengths, but being brutally honest about your weaknesses. Because until you face those parts of yourself, they will continue to control you from the shadows. Most people live as slaves to their emotions. They are happy when things go their way and angry when they don't. They are kind when they feel seen and bitter when they feel ignored. Their mood rises and falls with the weather of the world. But you were not made to be weathered, you were made to be rooted. You were made to be still in the storm, calm in the conflict, unshaken in the noise. Mastery is not about perfection. It's not about never feeling triggered or never making mistakes. It's about noticing, catching the moment before the reaction, creating space between stimulus and response. And in that space, choosing who you want to be. That is the difference between a man who is led by the world and a man who leads himself. When you do not master your mind becomes your master. It believes every thought. It reacts to every fear. It obeys every emotion. But when you train it, when you discipline it, when you guide it, it becomes your tool, not your prison. And that shift changes everything. In martial arts, we train the body with repetition, but self-mastery is trained through discipline, through saying no to what tempts your lower self, through sitting with pain instead of escaping it, through listening more than you speak, through choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort. And it's not just about handling conflict. It's about building a life that's not ruled by chaos. It's about waking up with clarity and moving with direction. It's about becoming the kind of person who does not crumble when things fall apart because they've built themselves from the inside out. I've watched men crumble from success, not failure, because they didn't master their pride. I've watched people destroy relationships not from hate, but from unresolved inner wounds they never learned to face. And I've watched people give up on their dreams not because they weren't capable, but because their own self-doubt was louder than their vision. You must decide, are you going to be ruled by your emotions, your past, your fears? Or are you going to rule them? Are you going to let the world push you around with opinions and expectations? Or are you going to become immovable in your purpose? Mastery is quiet. It does not shout. It does not need to explain. It simply moves with calm, with clarity, with control. And it is felt by everyone who witnesses it. You've seen it before. The man who doesn't need to speak much, but commands the room with his presence. That is not by accident. That is a product of self-mastery. So where do you begin? You begin with stillness, with observing your thoughts instead of reacting to them, with breathing before you speak, with letting go of the need to control everything, with walking away when it costs you your peace, with doing the work, the hard, silent, internal work, even when no one applauds. And over time, you begin to see that your emotions no longer control you. Your doubts no longer paralyze you. Your triggers no longer define you. You become a master not of others, but of yourself. And when you master yourself, the world loses its power over you. Because a man who knows himself cannot be moved by anything less. Now you've heard the lessons. 13 truths that do not belong to me, they belong to anyone willing to live with discipline, presence, and peace. But the question is not, did you understand them? The question is, will you live them? Because wisdom without action is wasted potential. Peace without discipline is an illusion. And silence without inner strength is just avoidance. This path, the path of self-mastery, is not loud. It's not flashy. It won't win you attention in the crowd. But it will give you something far greater, something the world cannot give you and cannot take away: control over yourself. You see, in my life, I was tested not just by opponents, but by the moments that tried to provoke me, distract me, make me forget who I am. And the real fight was never outside. It was always within, when I learned to walk through chaos without losing my calm, when I learned to stop explaining myself and start trusting my own silence, when I stopped reacting to the world and began responding from a place of deep presence. That is when I truly became free. That freedom is available to you, but only if you choose it. So ask yourself now, will you protect your energy like a warrior guards his center? Will you walk away from noise without needing to be understood? Will you become still when the world shouts for your reaction? The world wants to control your emotions. It wants to pull you out of yourself into a game of constant reaction. But I tell you, that game is not yours to play. You were made to move with clarity, to speak with purpose, to live with peace that no one can touch. And that peace begins the moment you decide to stop giving others the power to disturb it. So I leave you with this. Be the calm in the storm. Be the silence that speaks louder than noise. Be the one who does not need to react because he already knows who he is. That is true mastery. That is the way of peace. That is the way of the warrior. Walk it.